I always was looking to how do I lose weight? How do I look better, feel better? And I started realizing it's not about diets or what I eat or how much I exercise. It's how much weight am I carrying, period.
Yes.
That if I want to be lighter, my whole life has to be lighter. I need to be more light than dense. And the density was in the not seeing how I was responsible for the saying yes when I should have said no.
With a very special guest, a woman who has meant so much to me for the years that I've known her in the divine synchronous ways that we've been connected. She's actually a former client of mine, a woman who's become a very dear soul sister, a very wise elder, and I'm so excited for you to meet Kate Weschler. Kate is a licensed clinical social worker who has spent more than 3 decades helping people navigate relationships, family dynamics, grief, growth, healing. But what I really love most about Kate is it's not her professional knowledge. She's so wise. She knows so much through her 3 decades of clinical experience. It's her willingness to continue to grow and continue to evolve. You will be blown away by Kate and her wisdom after today's conversation. Kate has spent decades, again, practicing traditional psychotherapy. And along the way, she started to really ask herself deeper questions. Questions about meaning, questions about the meaning of life, about spirituality, bringing that in, about consciousness, about what it really truly takes, not just to understand ourselves, but to transform. So in today's conversation with Kate, we're going to explore the shift from analyzing the past to really consciously creating the future. Kate has so many pearls of wisdom to share with us throughout her stories. She's got a lot of stories of a life lived. And lives. We all know that. And Kate has had invitations to step into surrender over and over and over again through her journey in marrying an older man who already had 4 children that were teenagers when they got married, through her own journey through infertility, so many different things. We're going to really dive deep in talking about the hidden gift found inside of our own wounds and really reclaiming sovereignty and embracing that wisdom that comes with age. So without further ado, I want to welcome Kate to the Daily Surrender. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jen. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to have you. This is just fantastic. It's been a long time that we've known each other now, almost. I was thinking about this. I think we're going on 7 years, which is wild. That went by really quickly. Really, really, really quickly. And Kate, before we dive into our conversation here today, I'd love to go back a little bit in time with you. You've spent more than 35 years helping people navigate life and relationships, pain, growth, all the things as a psychotherapist. And when you look back at the younger woman who first entered into this profession, what was she hoping in the beginning to even offer people? Why'd you go into it?
Well, truthfully, every job I ever held, sooner or later, everyone in the office or the airplane when I was a flight attendant would sit down and tell me their life story. Starting with when I was a kid, and my friends' mothers used to want to talk to me. And one mother said to me, "You have such a good listening face." And so that planted a seed for me, and I am inherently interested in people. I like to know what makes them tick. I like to know, are you happy? Are you satisfied with your life? And if you're not, what are you doing about it? And because people spoke with me and I wanted to be of service, I think after doing several other jobs, including a teacher and some other things, I decided to go to grad school and become skilled at what I wanted to be able to offer. And that was in the early 80s.
How old were you when you decided to take that pivot, go back to grad school?
I was 33.
33. So at that point in your life, just so our listeners can get a little bit of a cool background on you, you married an older man who had children.
4 teenagers. And
Or
yes, that I have jokingly said to my husband, if I had had my psychoanalysis before, I'm not sure I would have entered into that. But I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. But it also, I also have this other thing where when I meet people, I get this feeling of I'm supposed to know you. I'm supposed to be in relationship with you. And this is how I felt about my husband. And even and especially with all of the challenges of our early life together, he was starting over in his career. He had 4 kids. Before we could do anything, we had to figure out how to pay for college. And I did go to graduate school because becoming an instant stepmother nearly upended me. And I had reached out for help for this woman who had written one of the 3 books on step families. And she wanted me to help her run workshops and things like that. And I formed a company called SOS Inc., Step Family Opportunity Systems. And we were a friend, an artist friend, and I were going to make greeting cards and run workshops for step parents and step families. And one thing led to the other, and I said, I need a credential. So I went to social work school, and the rest is history. I always liked working with parents, people, children, families, and that's where my path led me. But beyond step family.
so the things that you've walked through in your own life clearly have also shown up for you in your professional work.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. So here you are at 33. You are a stepmom to 4 teenagers.
Yeah.
You are also going through your own infertility journey.
That was later when I had negotiated that I would like at least one of my own children, and my husband agreed to that. And when we turned to that, after we got established and got the kids going in college and things like that, it didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
And I, as so many women, had to enter the journey of infertility treatments, which was brutal, and did not end up with a biological child. And at that point, my oldest stepchild had married, and we sort of assumed grandchildren would follow. And that's the path we took. That I decided to be a young and vital grandma, and I was very involved. I had a sweet moment where my now grown, I have 3, almost 4 great grandchildren. And
Oh, that just gave me chills.
And when the first wife of my oldest grandson was pregnant, we were all out to lunch with the family.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, how does it feel to be to almost be a great step nana? They call me Nana.
Yeah.
And my number 3 grandson stepped in and said, step nana? No way. She might be the stepmother of that older generation, but she's a full-on nana to us, and she'll just be a great nana to the kids. And that was a moment of arrival for me. And a reminder that we don't have to give birth in order to be a mother. And some of the learning I have actually gained from this whole process is, sometimes our biggest grief is our greatest gift. And that is not something that we always can see in the moment of profound pain.
Yeah.
But something I have always been fairly competent at is sitting with the all of feelings. And I have developed better capacity for that. And most recently, I think I've developed even more skills at helping people do that. I like
Mm.
to say, forgive me, but we all, when something untoward happens, WTF,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I immediately shift that
yeah.
now to what is this for? It shifts the energy of any situation.
It
And
does.
I didn't always used to be able to do that. And don't get me wrong, I suffered and struggled
Yeah.
and engaged in that process so much so that my infertility doctor called me 6 months after I said, "This is it. I can't do it anymore." I
Yeah.
mean, somewhere I have a country house that I could have bought instead of going through all these treatments. And he said, "How are you? I miss you." Because I would always chide him about what he was and wasn't doing, and his office needed some help with all these women who were full of hormones. He hired me as his consultant, and for 5 years, I
Oh,
worked with him in his practice and heard everyone who got to the point of in vitro needed to come to see me to assess their coping skills and
oh,
what they needed. And I essentially posed to all of them, you need at some point to come to a resolution, as I
mm,
had. Either you will have a biological child or you won't, and you will decide whether you're going to adopt, or you will figure out how to have a life and a fulfilling one, including with family or children in whatever way, without having a child. And there are several components that help you decide that. One is your physical body. For me, I was beaten up by the process and just couldn't do it anymore.
mm,
The shots, all the
yeah.
what you had to go through. And then financially, I mean, I met people who were putting second and third mortgages on their house trying to have a baby. And, at a certain point, it's like gambling. You're like, "Oh, I've tried so hard."
Yeah.
But so that was a personal trauma in my
Yeah.
own life that I was given a gift early in my marriage by meeting friends of my husband's parents who I never
Mm,
got to meet. They were a beautiful older couple in their 80s. And the woman, as I mentioned, just
mm,
opened up her heart to me in a cocktail party setting. And it became clear that she, in her 80s, she said, "Are you planning to have children?" And I said, "I hope so." And she goes, "My husband didn't want children. It is the biggest regret of my life."
mm,
And she was so sad about it and seemed so victimized by
mm.
that piece of her life story. And so, fast forward 5, 6 years later, when I was there, I thought about that woman. I said, I do not want to be her
Yeah.
in my 80s. I am not going to let this turn me into a victim. And look, I won't lie. Mother's Day, when everybody says to a woman of a certain age, Happy Mother's Day. And at first I was like, imposter syndrome. I'm like, no, I am a stepmother. I
Yeah.
raised my stepson from the age of 12. I mean, I've parented
Yeah.
and I am professionally trained to work with children.
Yeah.
So what I realized is, my destiny is something else. I'm meant to be kind of the mother of the universe. And I know that might sound a little grandiose.
No, I don't think so. That was what was just going through my mind, Kate, as you were sharing that. And I've known you a long time, and you have very, very strong mothering energy. Anybody who sits in your presence feels your mothering, loving energy. And so I think that that's very appropriate to say that you are a mother of the masses, and any of those people that are needing that mother energy, they seem to find you, whether it's professionally or personally in one way or another. And I know that as you've gotten into this later season in life, you've taken on the grandmother energy too. And
Oh,
we'll
that's
talk
the best.
about that.
That is the best gig ever.
And you got to be a grandma early. And now here you are getting to be a great grandmother.
Yes.
So I really, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, obviously our theme on this podcast is surrender. And in your story there's obviously so many different opportunities that you chose to accept to surrender. It's surrendering to the path that you thought would be, surrendering to what was your plan. And instead, God said, "Hey, I've got something different for you." And you chose it. And I really love witnessing that in you and what you also said about the WTF and the choice that we have to flip. Like, why is this happening? Like, we can have the what the fuck, like, and get really angry, or we can say, what is this for? Why is this being presented to me? I don't believe that God tests us, and that just doesn't feel like an all loving, infinite God to me. But I do believe that we are so seen and so guided and so provided for, and our soul is on this journey to step into the divine purpose that it has been created for. So, in that, life will present us with opportunities to grow and evolve. And that WTF question, that opportunity to flip the script, and instead of getting angry and staying really victimy to it, to say, okay, all right, so perhaps I'm being invited to surrender my plans, my script, right? And step into something more and something different. Last night, my husband and I went on a walk, and he had shared something with me that was a big WTF moment. And for both of us, but really for me, he had spent the day processing after a conversation with his boss that his position at the company he's been at for 14 years is being eliminated. And he needed to get grounded and solid before having the conversation with me, because of course I'm human and my nervous system, oh, wait, kids in college, what, wait, now, all the things. And because I am somebody like you, Kate, that's why we found each other here. We were drawn to one another. I am what is this for? And so after working through all the human thoughts and emotions, I sat and I literally asked that question. I said, all right, God, what is this for? Every trial that I've ever been in, every challenge that I've ever walked through in my life has been for me. It has grown me. It has directed me. Maybe this isn't the direction or the script that I had planned, but I know that your plans are better and greater always. So thank you for sharing all of those different details of it. I mean, I got chills. I know a lot of your story, but I actually didn't know that the infertility doctor invited you to come in and counsel patients going through infertility treatments for 5 years. So you were able to use not only your professional gifts and skills, but you were able to use that personal lived experience in stepping into acceptance. And right.
And I didn't feel the necessity to tell people that I had
Mhm.
gone through it. I have subsequently in my later life, I mean, I was essentially psychoanalytically trained, in the classic formulation of
Yep.
I was a blank screen, and the healing came in the therapeutic alliance, the transference, what was going on between us. It was all about, we called them patients back in the day,
Mhm.
and clients. But like everything in these almost 40 years, theoretical teachings change. We change who we become. And I always loved children, and I found ways to bring them into my life, including and I was a teacher right out of college. So I liked being the psychological consultant in schools, most particularly preschools.
Yeah.
And I've done that for over 30 years.
Right.
So I found, especially after the pandemic, when everything became more virtual, and I was running a group for one of my schools called Parenting During a Pandemic, with I mean, I would
Mhm.
imagine that we formed a whole generation of hand washers for the future, and parents are like, oh my God, my kid's a thumb sucker. And everybody just became so petrified of germs. And we changed our lives so profoundly. How women gave birth alone without their husbands because the hospitals were just like so crazy. I mean, everything changed then. And I became, and I was at three schools. Now I'm down to one at my age and stage. But what I love to do is like once a month, the school offers a session with Kate. And so the parents sign up for a half hour, and I call it speed dating with parents, and I just literally say, hi, who's in your household? I want to know pets, nannies, grandmas, aunties, two moms, two dads. I live in Brooklyn, New York. Everything goes here. I don't make any assumptions. And I have always been interested in families formed in unique ways. And I realized that I have this way of helping parents. I have essentially boiled it down to, and I'm a cat person. You probably see my cat sitting right there. I said, children are way more like cats than they are dogs.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to appreciate that you'll get the love and the pleasure, but they may not come when you call them. And you need to understand what the behavior is trying to tell you when things get challenging. And because, and I often encourage like zooming back the camera of a pattern that's forming that is not working well in a family and taking a look at what does this want to be? What is your child trying to express? And whenever we tell a child, no, this is no behavior, I remind people they have to tell them what the yes behavior looks like. Don't assume if they knew better, they would do better.
Right.
Is an essential rule I have for kids. And I think in so many ways, and it took me a while to get here, that my interest in child development and children and helping parents be more conscious parents is a gift I bring to my professional life because I wasn't busy doing that in my own personal life after a certain point.
Right.
But my interest never waned.
Yeah.
My interest in helping parents foster an environment of growth for children. And the other thing that I offered to these schools is, bad things happen in the world. And how do you explain that? I remember the day after 9/11, and I have a Brooklyn preschool where kids were looking out their bedroom windows saying goodnight to the Twin Towers, and some of them saw what happened. And we were doing orientation at the school that evening, and I would be introduced to like what my role is as a helper in the school. And the director handed me the microphone and said, here, Kate, they don't want to hear about homerooms and child development. They wouldn't know what to tell their children about 9/11. And I was like, oh, well, this is my first time with the 9/11.
Right.
And literally, that was a moment I closed my eyes and said, okay, source, I am a channel for whatever it is you want me to say to this group. And I remember saying, if you haven't already done so, turn off your TVs because in the presence of your children, because they think this is happening over and over again.
Yeah.
And then there was the very real issue of some of these children lost their parents, lost uncles, lost people they knew. And I had to quickly become facile in helping people talk about death and grief and loss to young families.
Right. And people need safe spaces to be able to talk about death and grief and loss and do it honestly. And you are someone who's walked through that yourself. You lost your father very young and you lost your dad to suicide. And you're behind the scenes with a lot of your own struggles has given you the prompting and also the bravery to have these very needed, I'd say, forward moving conversations with people, Kate.
And I'm not afraid of hard conversations.
Yeah, you're not.
I learned how to lean in.
Yeah.
a young mom gets breast cancer and is going to go through a mastectomy and is going to be ill and lose her hair and, you know, all the things that need to happen to support her and that family. Now, that's not my, I typically am not the therapist, but I direct them toward the resources they can have. And at the very beginning of this process, I help them be able to talk to their children about it.
Yeah.
And caution them, you can always add more information. In our anxiety, in a moment of we don't know how to respond to a hard question a child posed. First of all, I encourage parents to create an environment where children can always feel safe to ask questions.
Yeah.
And that being said, they're going to ask you some doozies and you're not going to be prepared in every moment. So do what therapists do. Say, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I like, that's a great question, sweetheart. And I want to give you my best answer. And I will get back to you on that. And then buy yourself some time to stop and think about what you want to say, how much you want to say.
Yeah.
And what I started to say before is I caution them to say less. You can always add more when you see what their true question is.
Yeah.
But if you start blathering out of anxiety, you'll overwhelm them. And you can't take back what you've already said or missaid. So cautioning them to be discerning with how they talk about it and remind them that what young children are most concerned about is themselves. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to pick up me and my sister at school? Who's going to make my lunch? Who's going to put me to bed? Who's going to read my stories? All of that. And, you know, I mean, through the years, just so many issues. Like we're moving, grandpa's sick, or the pet died. And, you know, all of these things. I have created a repertoire of being able to help parents address these life issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Because lifes and things happen. Gosh, Kate. So I know in your journey as a psychotherapist, at some point you began feeling like something was really missing from the traditional therapeutic model. Can you share more about that?
Yes. I mean, some people, the Woody Allen model of like staying in therapy for 1,000 years and just going over and over again. And, you know, some people like having someone to talk to and witness their life with and process things. And I am happy to serve that role. However, in some instances, I started finding myself feeling stuck in what I could offer a person. And I once said to a colleague, I feel like we're stuck in the rinse cycle and I want to get on to the spin and then hang it up to dry and move on to the next issue. And what was missing for me were several things. One, I am a deeply spiritual person.
Yes, you are.
And I never intended in my psychotherapy practice to be anybody's guru or a guide for like what I believe or how I practice my religion or my spirituality. However, I started noticing that something was missing in my ability to help people who had absolutely no access to that part of the universe. And I would feel my hands were tied. And little by little, I would sort of gently offer certain, even and especially, have you thought about going and hugging a tree? I think I'm truly a pagan at heart, and I do believe that nature is a balm for so much. And I myself live across from the Brooklyn Botanic Garden and often flee into that garden to lean on a tree, to look at the beauty, to take my shoes off and put my feet in the grass so that I feel grounded and resonant with nature. Mother Nature nourishes me. So I felt like, all right, it's safe for me to do that. That's not saying, you know, go to church, go to synagogue, go to the mosque, or go to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, you know. And so little by little, I suggested that do you believe in something bigger than yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I started finding that the people with whom I could interface in that way, I could be so much more helpful with.
Yes.
And I was more interested in the work. So as I got older and things changed with virtual work, I found I no longer wanted to work with people who were fresh in their trauma, who had
Yeah.
never been in therapy before, where you sort of had to teach them how to have an observing ego, how to talk
Right.
about themselves and their lives. I mean, especially in my years of working with adolescents, they would come in and go, oh, and I would be like, oh, well, it's been 7 days, 24 hours in a day. Something has happened. Tell me anything you noticed. And I did that for many years, and I helped people be able to observe their lives and their inner lives. But now I was more interested in transformation. And as the world got crazier and crazier after 9/11, after the pandemic, and you just can't watch the news without your blood pressure rising at this point. And I don't care who you vote for. It's just all a lot. And of course, I was always neutral in that regard. I don't talk politics with people. Everyone is entitled to their. However, I again started realizing if we let the outside news and the opinions of outside people determine how we feel, we are powerless.
Yes, we are.
And it is only when we sort of like, for at least a moment, step behind the curtain of the outside world and drop into ourselves and say, in this moment, who am I? How do I feel? What are my feelings? What are my needs? What do I believe in? And look, I do understand that human beings, by their very nature, need connection. Most people need connections. I mean, there's the rare hermit in the forest who doesn't want or need anybody, but most of us want to be connected, want to have love, want to be seen and heard and held. And that's a big part of what people strive for in therapy. And so more and more, I started helping people understand that it is not what happens to us, it's how we hold what happens to us. I'm a very big fan of Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a neurologist and a psychiatrist, and he worked with depressed people even before the Holocaust. And he came out of that and created a whole new theoretical way of doing therapy. And I'm not into being Pollyanna or, oh, just get over it kind of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is helping people take responsibility for how they view themselves, their lives, their traumas. And whatever has happened to us in the past is not our fault. Whether we had cruel, abandoning, abusing parents or not. But if we carry that sense of ourself as a victim forward in our life, we will find it over and over. We'll repeat the patterns of that.
Yes, we will. And we repeat the patterns, and the patterns are going to continue to repeat and become more and more painful in the ways that they show up for us, because that's part of our soul's journey. I look at those things as our soul cocoons that we've come in with. So we've got these soul corrections, and we're here to correct them. So until we choose to really lean in and change those patterns and change the way we be and the way we live. And some of that includes dropping the stories, stepping away from the stories that have become our identity so that we can step into a new identity, our true identity, the identity that's based on the truth of who we are and the true essence of who we are.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my most recent mentor, Catherine Woodward Thomas. With whom I studied and am a coach of her work. Sadly, she succumbed to cancer just a few months ago. But she has such a beautiful and articulate way. Her most recent book is What's True About You. And she echoes a lot of what conclusion I had come to. She says it a little bit more eloquently in her writing. And the whole idea of how are we the source of what continues to happen to us? And unless and until we can take a look at, if you're a person who cancels on people at the last minute all the time, and that's your pattern, then people may start rejecting you and not inviting you places. And then you get to live in that old pattern of nobody wants me, nobody includes me. I am outside of welcome. But what did you do to help create that is the point at which we can make the change.
Yes. Because we're taking radical ownership of our part. We're completely ignorant to think that we've had no part whatsoever in the way we be.
Yes.
Right. And how we're responding to the things. So we can't always control the things that happen to us in this life, certain circumstances, but we do have control and choice over how we perceive it and what we do with it. Kate, I want to dig into this a little bit more with you because I have stood witness to you really go after this in yourself. So you and I both know that professionally, every person that comes before us is our teacher. They are mirroring things back at us that maybe we have more shrapnel. So we can speak from a place of wisdom and experience, but I know every person, and you included, because you and I have danced together and we've done, a lot of coaching and work together over the years. You too became a teacher for me. And there were things that you were mirroring that I was seeing in you, and I could see them in you. Like I could clearly see some of the patternings and some of the shrapnel from experiences in your life and conditioning from your younger years in your family, and that conditioning to become somebody who was essentially rescuing everyone around you, right?
Yes, I would like to jump in on that because what I learned about, I've been chronically overwhelmed pretty much my whole life.
Yeah. Which would show up in your physical health. Like when you came to me 7 years ago, you're like, I am exhausted. I'm tired. I have a lot of work to do in this world. I'm very passionate about this world, but what is wrong with this body? Like something's happening, right? And we could do all the protocols.
I put myself last.
Yes.
All the time. And that's what I learned as a child, that everybody else's feelings and needs were more important than mine. And so I became, I'm essentially a smart, caring, compassionate person, empathic. Thank you to my mother, who I had to tune in. Like if mom's fine, we're all fine, so I became hyper attuned to the other. And I didn't learn how to say no. I overfunctioned and took too much on all the time, even good stuff. I'm an interested person and I would be like, oh, let's do this. And I'll sign up for that. And I'll read these books. And I was in 3 book groups at one point in my life. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And, and finally I realized I was responsible for the overwhelm. People can ask, but I am responsible for the triage of my own life. And I have done a much better job of that in these last few years.
Yes, you have.
And therefore, my body is showing up with gratitude. And, if I want to meditate, if I want to exercise, if I want to be very clean in my eating and study up on what I need to do for my body, I need to have time for that.
Yes, you do.
And that has been on me. I kept waiting for somebody to say, oh, that's enough, Kate. You've done enough. Nobody's ever going to say that. Maybe your best friend, maybe my husband would occasionally say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Right. But until you come to the place of really feeling conviction to change it in yourself and go after it and understand where it was coming from. I know you spent some time going really, really deep into the subconscious mind and saying, why are you here? Like, it's one thing to say, enough, Kate, your calendar is too packed. You're, running yourself ragged. Let's remove some things. But what inside of you wasn't allowing you to do that? And you were brave enough, and I'll also say humble enough, Kate, to get honest enough with yourself and to say, there's more. There's more inside of me. Yes, I've been practicing as a psychotherapist and a coach for almost 40 years. Yes, I'm a highly attuned, very intelligent woman, and I've done a lot of things, but I'm not going to let pride get in my way. My body is speaking. My body is loudly speaking, and I desire different. I desire to have a really strong, healthy vessel so that I can continue to be a channel for the divine and do this work that I'm called to do. But my own shit is getting in my way. And I stood witness to you going after it. You didn't say, I've done it all. I'm too old, or you're not going to change me now. You very humbly said, there's more. I know there's more. I'm tired. I need to lean in and listen. And in that, you have massively leveled up. I mean, there were a lot of metaphysical drivers of a lot of the physical dis-ease symptoms that you were having. And you and I had done a lot of work. And, in the functional medicine space, we can do thousands of dollars worth of testing and supplement protocols. But there comes a point where if you're not getting underneath it and you're not looking at the metaphysical roots, you're wasting your time and your money.
And what I came to really understand is, because look, like every woman in the world today, postmenopausal woman, I always was looking to, how do I lose weight? How do I look better, feel better? And I started realizing it's not about diets or what I eat or how much I exercise. It's how much weight am I carrying, period.
Yes.
That if I want to be lighter, my whole life has to be lighter. I need to be more light than dense. And the density was in the not seeing how I was responsible for the saying yes when I should have said no. And back to this idea that our identity is formed in relationship and it changes in relationship.
Yeah.
And as children, we know we need a grown-up to take care of us. And that little child and her ideas about herself and the world and what she needs to do to be loved is carried with us. Unless and until all of a sudden we realize, all right, so someone can be mad at me that I say, no, I'm not going to join this committee, or I can't come to your party, or I can't bake a cake for the party, or whatever. It's not going to be the end of my safety. I don't need to prove my value or source my safety by giving myself away. Yeah. And I had done that, I'm pretty sure, for like 60 years. And, I have stopped, or I am in the process of doing less of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You are. You're repatterning. And in that, you're creating more space for more lightness, and you're dropping the density, and you're not carrying the weight of everybody else's expectations and invitations and your own shoulds. And you're allowing yourself to really be you and to make you a priority instead of putting everybody else at the top of the to-do list and Kate at the bottom. Because let's be real, when we don't prioritize ourselves, we're never going to get to ourselves. Right? We're never going to get around to even going for the walk in the botanical gardens because we put ourselves number 10 on the list and the other 9 things take precedence.
There was a great 12-step saying, what other people say about me or feel about me is not my business.
I love that one. That's helped me so much.
That has helped me so much. And I didn't know that as a child. I thought how other people felt about me defined me.
Yeah, me too.
I had to keep proving it, that I was smart enough, good enough, kind enough, compassionate enough, capable enough, all the enoughs. You know what? I'm enough.
You are enough.
And
You are enough.
and I have a beautiful marriage with a man
Yeah.
who sees me as enough and who is a priority for me, like myself. You know, what he wants and needs is very important to me. But
Yeah.
I cannot make that my priority in every relationship.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that. And
Mm.
I sometimes started noticing that I was working harder than the other people, whether it was professional or personal,
Mhm.
at their growth, at their
Mhm.
healing. And I'm like, wait, this is not right.
Mhm.
And this is not mine. And that's why I had said to you earlier where I mean, I'm not ready to retire and
Mhm.
I'm in my mid 70s now and I have a lot more to offer, but I'm offering what I want to offer. I start
Good.
to say, not taking on new clients who are just starting their journey of
Mhm.
self-exploration. I want people who are ready for transformation.
Yeah.
I'll take you over the threshold
Mhm.
because I'm ready and I'm developing skills for being a little bit more of a tiger mom in those
Yeah.
situations. Like
Yeah.
calling them out. I recently was working professionally with somebody and she made a statement of what she wanted to accomplish. And I was sponsoring that vision. It made sense. It wasn't unreasonable. But I saw her falling into old patterns of like creating excuses and not getting it done and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're at a crossroads here and I'm
Mhm.
going to ask your permission. Do you want my compassion, sympathy, and oh, yeah, that's hard? Or do you want me to, excuse me, kick your ass a little bit?
Yeah.
It's your choice. I can go
Mhm.
either way. It's your life. And she goes, really? Could you say that again? And she goes, I think you should kick my ass. And I'm like, yeah, I think I should too.
Mhm.
I said,
Mhm.
if you want this vision, and I am big on setting a vision of where you
Mhm.
want to get to, that setting the GPS.
Yeah. So you know your destinations.
You
You're
know
not
your
just
destination.
floating around.
And there's lots of
Mhm.
misturns that happen that you have to like sort of recenter yourself,
Yeah.
or you need to stop and learn a new skill in order to get there. You need
Mm.
to notice your patterns and your old habits. And there's a recent book called Atomic Habits that is a
Oh,
good
I love that book.
example. It's like
Mhm.
little by little changing how you do
Mhm.
something. And the first time you do it, you're super bad at it because you're a newbie, even though you might be in your 70s, you're new at
Yeah.
this. But the more you practice it and the more feedback you get of, oh, that didn't create a catastrophe, you
Mm.
start learning that you can take. I mean, I started saying so many more no's, and guess what? The whole world did not collapse.
Yes. Yes, but you had to actually start saying those no's in order for you to learn the truth that the world isn't gonna collapse. And in that, it's really uncomfortable. And I think a lot of us human beings shy away from the discomfort and that messy middle where we're stepping away from the old identity and pattern of behavior in order to create the new, but we can't jump over the uncomfortability. And so, you leaning into your own uncomfortable spaces, Kate, and being braver to go deeper with yourself, be more radically honest with yourself, is why you are now really able to call in the clients and the patients that are ready to be challenged, that want a bit of a kick ass. So, and then you can show up for them with love. You're lovingly calling them higher and you're challenging them. But
That's right.
we energetically, as professionals, know this, that behind the scenes, we can only help people go as far as we have. That doesn't mean the details of their journey need to be the same as ours, but because of energy, and everything is energy, and you and I are both very, very energetically sensitive. So if we're bullshitting ourselves and we're not actually doing what we're calling other people to do, that's going to become an energetic block in our work with people. So you are at a different season of your work and you are really ready to take people across that threshold. You are also standing in a place of confidence as the wise elder that you are, who is embodying all of this lived wisdom through experience. And you're energetically creating these containers for people. And you also know that you are worthy today of not working all day, every day, taking any client that comes your way. You can confidently say, nope, you know what? These are the people that I am really, really, really best with. And these are the people that I am going to give my time, the sand in my hourglass. As you know, I have this
Yes.
hourglass from
And,
Amalie all those years ago, and you've
and
got
so
one
do
too.
I.
We have our hourglass to remind us that the sand in our hourglass is finite, right? Our time here on earth, our soul continues on for eternity, but our time here is such a gift. And how are we going to use it? And I love this. And, you had said earlier in the conversation too that in all the years of you working, part of what you could see was missing was the role of spirituality, and that role of spirituality and healing. And by also embodying your own truth more, Kate, you're able to bring that truth to people unapologetically. So we're not talking about religion necessarily, but we're talking about a connection to something that is so much larger than ourselves. And I know that you've really started, especially in the coaching work that you do, helping people create vision statements and identify a North Star for their lives. Explain more about this. Why is it so important for us to have a vision? And even spiritually, like that vision, if we have a vision, that's laid upon us by our creator. That just doesn't fall out of the sky. There's a
Well,
reason for it.
i- if
So,
if
yeah.
if we are present, if we were
Mhm,
tuning into ourselves and our true feelings and trying
mhm,
on things, like again, how do I feel about this? First of all, you wouldn't get into your car without knowing approximately where you want to go. And we have GPSs now. And if you're in New York and you want to go to Boston, if you start traveling south, you could get there, but it's going to take you a long time. You need to make certain choices
yeah.
about how to get to Boston. And maybe there's traffic, or maybe we have ways now to help us
Yeah.
navigate these things. Well, we have that, I think, psychologically as well when we tune into it. There's no lack of teachings that people can turn to about how to find themselves, their center, to know what really brings them joy. It is, when we were talking before about growth, a client once very wisely said, there is no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. And I have really taken that to heart. We grow only through allowing ourselves to be a little uncomfortable. Now, I'm not a proponent of pain, but I am a proponent of, you exercise, you want to improve your muscles, you gotta be a little sore, not to injury, but to a next level of ability. And that's true psychologically too. And I have a lot of insight and knowledge and experience in helping and hearing what people want and giving them some ideas of how to get there. I'm like a tour
Mm,
director.
mm,
That's why I said to my client, if you want this outcome and you stay doing this, you're going around and around a New Jersey traffic circle and you're
yeah.
not taking any particular route.
Mm,
So
mm,
what do you want to do? You need to make a choice. And yeah, it might be uncomfortable.
mm,
You
mm.
need to take a risk.
Yes, yes, we do. Yes, we do. We live in a society that has a lot of offerings of comfort, right? Like our dopamine hits, especially here in Western society. I mean, we're pretty cush, right? I believe. We've got Amazon Prime that can deliver something instantly to our door. We can get food delivered to our door. We can turn on our television. We can scroll on our phones. And so that that gives us this illusion that everything should be instantaneous, quick, easy, and comfortable. but real growth happens outside of all of that. So helping people really to understand, and I believe, and I know you are the same, Kate, that this is where it's so important for us to deeply root and anchor ourselves in something that is higher than us. That trust in our creator, in the divine that is in us. And that really is the guiding North Star. So, whatever that dream or vision is that is laid upon us because that's part of our soul's destiny, our soul's calling, that journey that we're on here. So we can trust in it, but trusting on our own flesh, can get really messy, and it's really easy to make excuses because the ego's voice gets really loud and tells us all the reasons why we shouldn't do it, and especially when something becomes really, really uncomfortable. So I love that you're doing the North Star vision work with people, and
Well,
that's
and
super important.
when I do that, it's often easier to start with what do we have in our life that we don't want? What don't we have in our life that we
Mm,
do want? To start kind of with the deficit.
mhm,
And then flip that on its head and say, well, what do we want? And so for
mm,
me, a few years ago, and again, with the health issues and the fatigue and all of that,
yeah,
it was like, oh, I'm tired of being so busy and feeling like whatever I do, I'm not doing something else. Like,
yeah,
how do I end up like that? I want spaciousness of time. I want to be able to
mm,
savor what I'm doing. I want my at least a few hours of my morning to be reading, meditating,
mhm,
learning, taking a walk, petting my cat, whatever it is that
mhm,
makes me feel centered and grounded from my day. And then I'm a hard worker. I'm happy
yeah,
to do that, but not. And I often say we would not expect this to work if we didn't plug it in and recharge it.
yeah,
But I was expecting my own physical body
yeah,
to do that without being charged.
yeah,
And we've all had the experience of waking up and, oh, something happened to the electricity and our phone's not charged. Oh my
mhm,
goodness, how am I going to get through my day without my phone being charged?
mhm,
But how often did I do that to my own body?
yeah,
And I am not doing that so much anymore. And
mm,
it's it we don't make huge changes typically with one big leap.
mhm,
It is step after step, choice after
mhm,
choice. But when we have the goal in mind
mhm,
at every crossroad, then we ask ourselves, is this taking me toward what I want, or is this
yes,
taking me back
mhm,
to my old pattern?
mm, mm,
And look, we're imperfect as human to err as human, to forgive divine,
yeah,
and we do need to be patient with ourselves. 2 steps forward and a step back, but that's still
mhm,
progress.
absolutely. My goodness, Kate, you really are truly stepping into what I know you call the vital crone. And since you were a young woman, you have said, and maybe this is part of your own North Star, that you wanted to really become the vital crone. So, what does that archetype mean to you, Kate?
Well, I mean, when I first discovered astrology in my teens and
Mm-hmm.
had my chart read, it said, "You're a late bloomer." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds awful." What does that mean? These things were in my 10th and 11th and 12th
Yeah.
houses. And well, guess what? I'm in those 10th, 11th, and 12th houses now. And
Ah,
I'm really appreciating the fact of, yes, I do feel like this is my time to bloom. That
mm,
all the things that have happened in my past, including and especially
yeah,
the hard and sorrowful things, I
yeah,
have, like many people, experienced a lot of loss, a lot of
yeah,
disappointments. Death is inevitable for
yeah.
all of us. We're born to die, and
Mhm,
we hope it's a long way off.
mhm.
Sometimes it isn't, and we can't always stave off terrible things like cancer or
Yeah.
accidents or,
Yeah. As you know, we've just recently buried one of your stepdaughters.
that's right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And just 2 weeks ago, well, what would have been her first grandchild, and our first great granddaughter was born. And so I am now so appreciative of the contrast. Everything in this first year of life without a loved one who recently passed is tinged with pain. We cannot welcome this baby, which we are so happy to do, without feeling the pain of what her grandma didn't get to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, milestones and holidays that she used to host are so bereft without her generous, thoughtful hand. And yet, when you hold this idea that sorrow and pain also serve us and our soul's growth, and that it isn't only about unfairness and being a victim of it, but it is a breathe into it and accept and find peace in it. And even and especially in every day that could be a miserable day, there is something that can give you joy. And, you know, whether it's, for me, it's like having plants that bloom, or having a crazy kitty that's so pretty and gives me kitty kisses in the morning, or whatever it is. It's and. I feel that but gives us too much either or, black and white.
Yep.
Life today is made more rich when we accept and.
Multiple things can exist at the same time. And you just said accept. So the acceptance of that helps us to drop the resistance that perpetuates the suffering.
Or that there's only one way to happiness. You know, yes, I thought having my own child was going to break me if I didn't get to do that. It did not. It helped to make me.
Helped make you. It did. Well, Kate, as we wrap up this really rich conversation, and we could talk for hours and hours and hours, a couple more things I'd love to hear from you. So in a culture that we live in today that is so obsessed with youth and keeping ourselves looking young, I don't think we have ever been in a time where there is more plastic surgery, Botox, injections, all the things keeping people frozen in time, looking actually like mannequins than ever before, than we are today in 2026. What wisdom do you think that aging offers to us? So instead of resisting that aging, and I'm not making any comments on how people choose to age physically on the outside, but there is so much beauty and wisdom in the aging process. So what do you think that is for us?
Well, I remember years ago discovering Maya Angelou and her poetry, and I was a younger woman, and no one would accuse her of being a great beauty. However, I found her so sexy and sensual and so beautiful. The way she spoke, the way she held herself, the way she loved herself. And that was a message to me about aging, that it isn't always about physical beauty. And how we look. And a few years ago, I went to a friend's 75th birthday party, and a lot of women there, very attractive, prosperous women. I remember thinking to myself, whoa, this is not good. You know, there's like, that woman looks like a Cabbage Patch doll, you know, and I felt guilty having that reaction. But I thought to myself, I would rather have my well-earned wrinkles and a little bit of a drooping chin. You know, when we first started doing Zoom sessions, I think I wore a turtleneck through that first summer. It was like, oh, is that really what my chin looks like? But, you know, you get over it and you realize the more I like myself and my internal self, I feel younger. I feel more full of light. And beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Mm.
You know, what do you think is beautiful? And I have always loved wrinkled old ladies, long gray hair, you know,
No.
Native American women, and, you know, just this grandmother culture.
Yeah.
And I am happy to be embracing that. And it's not to say that I don't want to look nice or be appreciated and wear a good color lipstick. And, you know,
Yeah.
I have a fair amount of vanity and self-care.
You're a human.
I am human. But I do think that the more people focus on the internal light, the more it shines through in a way that is perceived as beauty.
Amen, sister. I mean, the law of being states that the external will always reflect the internal. So when we focus only on shifting the external and ignore the internal, we're never going to actually radiate out that light and that beauty, that radiant light and beauty that Maya Angelou embodied came from her working on that internal state of being. And therefore, all of the deep wrinkles and she had a lot of moles and all of that was just so, it just made it sparkle. And you can just feel the embodiment of wisdom in her. So, and I mean, Kate, you too radiate that wisdom. So, you know, in wrapping up our conversation, in keeping with our theme of surrender, what are you, Kate, currently surrendering in this season of your own life? Put it out there publicly.
What I'm surrendering is this idea that I can beat my to-do list.
Oh,
That, you know, my friend Catherine, before she died, literally said to me, "You're bigger than your to-do list, Kate." And I just really took that to heart. And I think my whole life I thought, when I get this done, when I check this off my list, when I get this, you know, organized and that refurnished and this whatever, when I lose this many pounds and clean my closet and, you know, name your thing.
yes.
I no longer feel that that is what defines my completeness. That I want to spend minutes, if not hours, every day just being in appreciation of being alive with my imperfect body and my imperfect apartment and my imperfect file system. You know, it's not to say that I don't try to keep everything moving along in an organized way. I do. But I am not judging myself for the lack of perfection in that. I am surrendering trying to be a perfectionist.
I love it. I love it. Oh, and there's so many of us who are joining you in that. I'm joining you in that. As I mentioned much earlier in our conversation, every single person that comes before me as a teacher, and Kate, you've been a teacher to me in so many ways. I saw myself in you when we started working together, right? But I could see so clearly the things that were weighing you down and holding you back, and why your body was screaming and saying, "Please, mercy, mercy." You had to come to it on your own. You know, it's never our role to say, "Hey, here's the thing," right? But as I watched you and witnessed you and was coaching you, I also was hearing those words reverberate right back at me, because you and I have we have had a lot of a very similar programming and hypervigilance and rescuer and people pleasing and all the things. And you've been incredibly convicting. You've been very, very motivating to me. You're very inspiring. You're an amazing human. I thank you for following the call many, many years ago after talking to our mutual friend, Freddie Kimmel, and saying, I need to meet that woman, and insisting we get on a phone call, because that has changed me. And
well, you are one of those people that like the universe gives me this vibration. Like, oh, she lives in my hometown. I have to call her. I need to reach out to her. And I do lean into that. I must say, that's how
I
I
love
found
that.
my husband. That's how I found many of my friends that I have persevered with, even and especially when there was evidence to the, to the opposite.
To the contrary. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how spirit leads. And so the more that we clear our own gunk and junk and we become very open to that guidance and we listen and lean in, and it's often a small, soft voice or a nudge, right? And something that doesn't go away and we follow it, well, then life unfolds in really magnificent, beautiful ways. And your whole story and all that you've shared with us here today and your wisdom is such an example of that, Kate. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It is my pleasure.
Yeah, I will put in the show notes here links to where people can find you if they are desiring working with you in either your coaching program, which is definitely kick-ass, and for women really ready to cross the thresholds and that transformation, find your North Star, and then also the psychotherapy work that you do in New York City.
And the parent guidance work.
And the parent guidance, yes.
And to do, yet to do on my list is get a website, which is moving its way up my list. But if you give my email and text, that's fine. Thank you so much, Jenna. Thank you for your guidance. I have learned so much from you.
It's mutual. Mutual, sister.
I would love to hear what pearls you're walking away with. You can drop them here in the comments. You can shoot me an email. I really, really love hearing from you. What I love most about Kate's perspective is her reminder that we're not simply the sum of what's happened to us. We are meaning makers. We are creators, and we're capable of choosing again and again and again how we meet the experiences of our lives. And maybe that's what surrender really is. It's not giving up or bypassing or pretending that everything's okay. Kate showed us that in a lot of the experiences that she's walked through in her life. But it's trusting that even in the middle of uncertainty, in the middle of heartbreak and loss, and a life that's not going in the direction that you wanted it to or expected it to, that there's still this invitation unfolding. There's still more. There's still wisdom available. There's still a life that's asking us to really actively participate in the creation of its beauty. So I've got something really special for you. If this conversation resonated with you and you're really feeling a pull to reconnect with yourself this summer, we're in the midst of summer. I want to personally invite you for something that I'm starting next week. It's the Summer Self-Reclamation. It's an experience. I don't want to call it a program, even though it is a container that's 6 weeks and there is structure. I do run a business, but it's a experience that invites you to come home to yourself through simple practices, weekly experiments, soulful reflections, some teachings from me, and a sacred sisterhood, a community where a rising tide will float all boats. This is a no pressure, no perfection type of experience that's really more of an invitation to listen more deeply to your own life and begin moving into what your soul is calling you to. A reconnection to that true essence of self. You're going to walk away at the end of summer as we tap into the energy of summer with more self-awareness, more connection to yourself, more spark, more juju and playfulness. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is after working with women for decades. Finding who we really are amidst all the shoulds and all the layers and all the masks and roles we take, and connecting with her is connection with our life force. It's what sparks us and helps us to really shine and live in our divine design. When we're not living in our divine design, that's what really creates the dysregulation in the nervous system that leads to symptoms of disease. We begin next week. Our first live call is on July 14th. The doors are open for you to register until July 13th. So the link is in the show notes below. You can find all of the details. I would really, really love to have you join us. If today's conversation touched your heart, please share this episode with someone that you love. Leave a review and please hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. That helps me get these messages out to more women. Until next time, my friends, continue to listen, lean in, and keep trusting and surrendering into the wisdom that is already alive within you. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.